Welcome back to another action figure review. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at the History of the Daleks set, number 13, based on the story The Five Doctors. This set contains a unique design of Dalek that has only ever appeared once, which has been nicknamed the Death Zone Dalek. But not only that, we also have another rendition of the First Doctor, but this time as he was portrayed by Richard Hurndall, a figure that was prototyped but never released, but we'll be getting onto that later on. As per usual, to start off with, let's begin by taking a look at the brand new packaging. So to begin with, we have a brand new style guide here, which is very reminiscent to what we have seen in the Regeneration box set, with this vibrant white, but at the same time we've also got this lovely blue glowing effect going around the box. Apparently each Doctor is going to be represented with different colours, with the Fifth Doctor being represented in blue, but then again not a lot of people are sure whether it's meant to be him or the First Doctor, but time will only tell. We also have the brand new logo on the side, as well as the TARDIS, the name of the set, and that same old gold limited edition foil sticker. We also have a brand new insert that is very reminiscent to the Time Vortex as seen in all of those trailers for the 60th anniversary. And we also have the figures themselves now encased in a plastic blister card, and there is no more plastic window or tie wraps. Now again, this has been very controversial and has actually divided the fandom, or undecided whether it's a good thing or not. I can understand why, because they want to limit the amount of plastic they have in their products these days, but at the same time it is very difficult to see if your Richard Hurndall figure, for example, is cross-eyed, because there is no way of telling, especially with the logo being in a way. It is very annoying. Out of the box, the figures look amazing. I feel like we have been treated quite well this year, considering how a few years back we never thought in a million years we'd ever see the likes of a Richard Hurndall figure. So let's begin by taking a look at him. So taking a look at the First Doctor, as portrayed by Richard Hurndall, this is a figure that many people were after for a very, very long time, especially fans of the classic era. It was originally prototyped, as I said, many moons ago, and I think it was originally leaked in around 2011, if I stand correctly, and it sadly never materialised. Apparently, when this set was rumoured, they were going to use that original head sculpt that was leaked, but sadly the last remaining prototype that existed was sent to China and sadly destroyed. So this means they've actually gone back and they've rendered up this brand new version, which I actually think looks a lot better. So beginning with the head sculpt, it looks amazing. I think it really does look like Richard Hurndall. It is a distinct likeness. You can really tell who it's meant to be. The paint apps on the face are very nice and crisp, especially around the eyes. I think the only issue I have is the eyebrows are very prominent, considering that Richard Hurndall's were quite fair. But apart from that, everything else is really nice. The wash on the hair is another nice touch with all the white curls, with a slight darker wash over the top to really get into all those crevices. It just looks really nice. Moving down to the costume, the coat itself is exactly the same as you've seen on every other First Doctor figure, considering the coat was very, very different in the Five Doctors, but I didn't think we were going to see anything like that whatsoever in this set. The coat itself has been cast in a black plastic along with the arms. The waistcoat itself has been painted in this very light cream, with the buttons being a darker bronze, which is very close to what was seen on screen. The cravat itself has just been painted in a matte black, with the monocle being painted in a silver, but sadly missing the ribbon detailing, which has just been painted in the same colour as the rest of the waistcoat. Again, a bit of a shame, but can be fixed with a bit of paint if you want to rectify it yourself. And then taking a brief look at the hands, it is well known that the First Doctor in this story wore fingerless gloves, and they have been represented quite well here. As you can see, the hands themselves have just been painted. There is no new sculpting on the hands. Then moving down to the trousers, they have just been painted in a dark grey, with the shoes themselves being painted in a gloss black. Sadly, the figure itself does not come with any accessories, so a lot of people are a bit disappointed with the fact that he doesn't come with his walking stick. Again, if you've got spare First Doctor figures, I'm sure you can just switch and swap all you like. Personally, with me, I feel like because those canes were very different, I may try and track down a spare Curator one, as that is very similar to what was seen on screen. It was more normal than what the one that Hartnell had, but again, it's attention to detail if you want to add in yourself. And then comparing the three versions of the First Doctor, here on the left you have the original, you might say, William Hurndall, with Richard Hurndall being in the middle, and with David Bradley on the far right. As you can see, there's so many differences between the three figures, and to think we've actually got the trio now, I just think it is amazing. I never thought in a million years we were going to ever see a Richard Hurndall figure, let alone a David Bradley figure, and it's really amazing that we've got this now. My overall thoughts on the First Doctor is the fact that, he is an amazing figure. This is definitely my favourite set of Wave 1, and it's great to add him onto the shelf with all the other 5 Doctor related figures. And now moving on to the Dalek himself, aka the Death Zone Dalek. This is actually a good representation for what we saw in the story. I would argue to say he is very clean, because the prop itself was basically in tatters by that point. So the Daleks themselves hadn't been seen on screen since 1979, so there's a huge gap between then and 1983. And at that point, the Daleks were handed out to exhibitions, they were handed out to the public, and they weren't really treated in the greatest of conditions. If you've actually seen the 5 Doctors, there's bits of pieces missing off the Daleks, there's chunks off the dome, there's chunks missing out of the solar panel slabs, they're pretty much ripped off, and the lights themselves are different, and the whole thing is just in tatters, really. So I can understand that they've tried to streamline it here and they've tried to make it as accurate as they can possibly get, but I think certain ways of doing things, like maybe just dirtying up paint apps, etc., would have made this figure a lot better. But it's still a good figure nonetheless. So beginning with the dome, the lights are very different here. They are much more enlarged, which is very accurate to what was seen on screen. The eye stalk itself has just been painted in a complete grey, apart from the ball at the end, and a lot of people have stated online that they have used the wrong sculpt, and it has upset a few people. And a lot of people have stated that they should have really used the Destiny Dalek eye stalks that we saw last year. And to be fair, I do have to agree on that, because it does look very similar to what we saw in the story, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. It still looks good nonetheless, and the paint apps on here are very nice and crisp, especially around the iris. As per usual, you've got the neck ring, with all the rings themselves being painted grey, and the mesh being painted black. But what I want to bring your attention to is the lower lip right at the bottom of the neck bin, which is in fact accurate on the Dalek props up until revelation of the Daleks. So basically all it is a extra little part that's been added onto the toy, and it really works in its favour. It pretty much represents what was seen on screen, and it really does represent the silhouette well of a 80s Dalek, and technically it is part of the mesh section, so I'm really disappointed that they've not actually added mesh detailing on there, but there you go. Moving down to the mid section, the paint apps again are very nice and crisp, especially along the mesh. I know a lot of people again have been disappointed with the fact they didn't paint half of it silver, but in my opinion I think that would have looked silly, especially on a small scale toy like this. You've also got the gun and plunger, which is again very detailed. They've actually depicted the little silver rod on the plunger, which is a very nice touch. It's just a shame that not every single Dalek has one, but there you go. The gun itself is also very nice, especially with the fact they've added the orange dot down the nozzle, which is supposed to represent the little thing that used to pop out every time a Dalek gun would go off. Again, very nice attention to detail. The only issue that we do have with the midsection that a lot of Dalek aficionados have pointed out is that it's missing the oval. I mean, it's a travesty, really. I'm really upset about this. But at the end of the day, it is just one minor fault. Apparently, on the SFX version, which is the one they blew up, he didn't actually have the oval. So you could argue to say, oh, okay, it is meant to be representing that version, but we're Doctor Who fans, so we are going to be annoyed by that. And then lastly, moving down to the skirt, again, very nicely detailed. You still have that very dark grey, which is represented on the rest of the body, with the hemispheres being painted in a gloss black. And then finally, moving down to the base, that is just a singular sculpt being painted in a matte black. Overall, I think this is a very nice Dalek figure. This is again something I never thought we were going to own, because it's one of those Daleks that I thought, well, it appeared in one story and that wasn't even a Dalek story, so I thought we were never going to see it. The whole point of this range was going to be, it's to do with the stories, not cameos, etc., and that was it, but apparently not. For articulation for the First Doctor, He has plenty. His head can move from side to side, the arms can do a full 360 twist as well as the biceps, the elbow can bend at a 90-degree angle as well as having movement at his wrists. He also has articulation at the waist, but is sadly hindered by the coat. As well as that, you have a T-crotch joint, meaning that his legs can move forward and out to the sides, and he also has thigh articulation, and to finish things off with articulation at the knees. As for the Dalek, the dome itself can do a full 360 twist, the eye stalk can pivot up and down, and the gun and plunger arm are on ball joints, giving loads of posability options. As well as that, we have 3 wheels on the bottom, 2 standard, and the front one which can move in any direction, giving the Dalek a full range of mobility. Overall, I think this is definitely going to be my favourite set out of the 3 from the first wave. The fact that we've got 2 figures of characters we never thought were going to be immortalised into plastic sculptures was ever going to happen, especially as a B&M release. The Richard Hurndall figure is something that a lot of us have wanted since the prototype was leaked, and it's nice that we can now complete the roundup of all the actors who have portrayed the First Doctor. It could also incline that future prototypes could possibly be released in the future. As for the Death Zone Dalek, he again is an excellent rendition to our collection, as this is something that I didn't think we were ever going to see. As like I said, I assumed that these sets was just meant to be for the stories based on the actual Daleks, instead of just having guest appearances, which was what this was. But I don't want to grumble too much, as it's such a unique design. But my only critique is that it doesn't look tatty enough. I think some paint apps, like some dirty washes over the top, would have improved it ever so slightly, but it's still brilliant nonetheless. So that pretty much wraps up this review. I would like to thank everyone for watching, and stay tuned for my next review, which will be coming very soon.